They'd say, okay, Khempo says that the attachment causes suffering, but gee, I don't see how the attachment to my boyfriend causes me suffering. They don't understand that.
That's true. You see, you have a lot of pleasure feeling with your girlfriend or another someone boyfriend. You know, that is the cause of.
So, for example, let's say you have a lot of pleasure or feelings with your girlfriend or boyfriend.
Then the feeling coming.
But let's say you get divorced or you separate. There's suffering on both sides. But you see, in the beginning, you formed your relationship out of friendship. And out of that came pleasure. But because of attachment, the next step beyond that is suffering. That attachment is the cause of suffering. It's like a cycle.
You know, something
causes pleasure, but then that pleasure can be a source of subsequent suffering. But ironically, that suffering is actually an antidote to further suffering.
Because you suffering you don't like.
Why is that? Because you don't like suffering. So therefore you're motivated to study and advance your wisdom, to do spiritual practice. Then you can abandon your suffering and become enlightened.
Support from suffering.
So ironically, the cause of your enlightenment is the suffering that you wish to avoid or prevent, because you understand the nature of suffering and you don't want to experience it. So this is just a cycle of feelings. It's an interdependent connection. We see how each one of these, in turn, supports the other to create a cycle. Each is supporting the other. You know, desire is giving you feelings or pleasure. From that desire then comes more attachment. And the attachment creates suffering, and then suffering itself can be an antidote to suffering. Or suffering can lead to more suffering as well. But you have the antidote, which is wisdom. If you don't like suffering, then you'll do spiritual practice and study, and you will find the antidote to emotional desires or attachment. And then you will automatically abandon suffering. Without finding these antidotes to attachment, you can't really abandon suffering, because suffering is itself the direct result of desire and attachment.
So you don't want suffering, you must be abandon desire, attachment. You need to be antidote from there. You need to be wisdom.
Do the emotions cause the self?
Yeah, emotion is creating, self is creating emotion.
In fact, the emotions come from this sense of self.
Comes from self.
The self thinks, I come first. I am the most important.
Not looking.
It does not look outside at others. It never says they are important. Every person is thinking, I am important. The Buddha had a word for this. He called it dowa. Dowa means moving.
Why moving?
Why use the word moving? Because the person is constantly moving in search of a better condition.
Do better. There's nothing to do there because illusion.
Said everything is an illusion. If an enlightened person was here, would they see trees and would they see the ground, or would they see the world that we do, or do they perceive it differently?
They do all things, but
they see everything, but they don't see things in a common way, the way that we see things. For us, the conventional level is oriented towards the self. The enlightened being's perception of the conventional level is different than ours. We think we all have a common vision with them, but we don't.
How did the Buddhists talk about this ultimate reality that's emptiness? And modern physics has basically come around. They've looked in the tiniest little parts of time and space, and they said it's empty.
Yeah.
How did the Buddhists figure that out 2,000 years ago? How did they know that the world, because science now says, yes, the world is essentially empty.
Yeah.
How did the Buddhists, how did they figure that out 2,000 years ago?
Because Buddha is enlightenment.
The Buddha understood the true nature of reality because he was enlightened. That means that he knew the nature of all phenomena.
No illusion more.
He had no more illusions. He saw all things correctly. But it's difficult to explain or for us to recognize, because as sentient beings we live in a state of heavy illusion. The Buddha gave us the methods in order to help us to know how to grow in wisdom.
Illusion, does that mean that when they walk down the street, they're making stuff up that's not there? I mean, what's the illusion that's giving them so much problem?
Example, you are asleep and I'm not sleeping. Even
for example,
you're
asleep and I'm not sleeping. If you're sleeping, you may dream, and some of your dreams may be very scary for you. You hope to be freed from that, but you don't know how. If I had the power, I could help free you from your illusion. Then I can help you, and you'd have no more suffering.
Suffering. Like same is
like
enlightenment
said,
level like that.
The enlightenment level
Buddha
is like that.
Already
the Buddha has already abandoned suffering. It is like he has woken up. We are still sleeping and dreaming in heavy illusion.
We had suffering.
We have suffering.
This is the technique.
So wisdom is the technique to wake up.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Tasha Bill.
Would you say that all the negative emotions come from self?
Yeah.
That was a good answer.
Yeah.